Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? Phenomenal. I knew the other three who'd come on board, but had never made the formal acquaintance, nor, from what I'd learned, would have cared to. The other guys, no idea. I use guys loosely, without gender assignment, which isn't a horrible thing. People more than ever are just kinda people. Despite the plucky can-do dementia of the Proud Boys and Rollers in Florida and guys like my two new friends, who seem to swing dicks with random glee. Today's vast uncertainty liberates me from the subconscious rules of attraction or aggression and the traps and travails that result from getting it wrong or acting on the primordial. Not so much with the other guys. There was no context for humanity, much less the equipment or accoutrement that might tell me who I wouldn't bang with a regulation 10-foot titanium pole or drunkenly flail at outside a sketchy bar at 1 a.m. on the ass end of town. And in fact, that's the last thing my bros were doing before we became fellow contestants in Intergalactic Survivor. Or more literally, ultimate, naked, and afraid. This was what I'd call a Kate McKinnon scenario. All coot-coots and prune shoots, and, in this instance, shriveled roots. Nothing like full disclosure to douse male bravado, or, to be frank and with all due to the fourth member of our little party, to make you reconsider why you considered busting skulls the ideal nightcap. For at least one of the bros, it was karma swooping out of the central Illinois skies with an extraterrestrial roofie. And the night, or morning, I guess, was still young, it would appear. Under abnormally normal conditions, or at least those I'd recorded a dozen times, I'd expected to come out of this with a little invasive poking and prodding, and, if I won the lotto, a blank spot in the tape over the P&P. Unlike my pals, I naturally was more intrigued than terrified. Now, I had a sense I'd have preferred the scheduled entertainment. It looked like something out of a Nickelodeon awards show, except, unlike Demi Lovato or Derek Jeter, nobody went home with a trophy and green pudding in their coot-coot or prune shoot. All honesty, the mangled thing on the seamless luminescent floor seemed an improvement over the rest of the crew now milling about. Nobody leapt out of the crowd howling at the heavens for their lost comrade. Nobody wrapped tendrils or tentacles or whatever shit around anybody's throats. Dead guy could have been the office douchebag for all I knew, but nobody's metaphorical shorts seemed particularly in a bunch. Why I got chosen, I have no idea. There's nothing about me that projects leader vibes, except maybe the glasses, which would have meant nothing in a galaxy likely minus a lens crafter's or, seemingly, eyes. Maybe I was the only one of the Millington foursome who wasn't projecting pheromones, blood, Jägermeister, and Stetson original flavor. Maybe there was something their species found comfort in the lingering essence of ranch corn nuts. I'd left the fucking bag in the front seat of the Honda in the tractor turnaround 100 feet down the road. The body and all attendant slime had been removed efficiently from the tiny chamber, which from the lights and panels and sensors filling one wall was probably the flight deck, which may have made dead Guy the captain. made sense, because from the corridor outside, there simply was no entrance, and Captain Demised's residual slime had pooled and congealed where the invisible door had been opened presumably by somebody with the codes or the neural interface or whatever sci-fi horseshit these nerds used. I'd been a true crime podcaster since WMIL had fired me for hiding my stash under the audio board and lifting the gear essential to launching a successful true crime podcast. My host this evening extended a tentacle or tendril, and I tensed as it touched my hand. I momentarily considered that I'd been selected for all the wrong reasons. Then I sensed something like the warm vibration of an electric blanket kicking on, and something in my skull registered it as a reassuring gesture. Nobody's mad. We just want to get to the bottom of things before we rip the flesh from all your bones and cast you still breathing into Jeff and Elon's airless playground. After a moment, the tendril withdrew, and I sensed a change in the ambient frequency. Broadcaster's ear, some might say, as I loaded up my bobbleheads in WMIL/WILFFM/WCNT's circular drive. The FCC had given up long ago. My senses had only heightened after I swapped the pot for the pod. So, I finally spoke. What do we do here? A ripple in a fold where we normally keep our belly buttons was the only sign it hadn't already moved on to Denny's versus IHOP. Then my hand buzzed, and I felt something like a venti double espresso hitting my brain. I glanced down, and I realized E.T. had plastered some tech on me. Teeny tech, like that thing above Kate Winslet's lip, I couldn't look away from during the entire run of Mayor of Easttown. They probably had better Best Buys in the Andromeda, because as I pondered my hand, it kicked things off. It wasn't a question. No Wookiee purr or calming Christopher Nolan, Jodie Foster Babelfish Siri for dummies. It was a sensation that sparked the right cerebral pathway in the rough form of a question. Hey, don't ask me. Aside from the abduction thing, I got nothing against you guys. I were you, I'd call a staff meeting. This was clearly an inside job. I raised a brow and a tendril twitched. Unless? It responded with an abrupt hum with a rising inflection. I'm just saying. The hum raised an impatient decibel. I had that effect, and I grinned despite the sketchy circumstances. Let me know if you heard this one. A vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost walk into a bar. I'd never really cared for the paranormal. As a kid, I'd cheated curfew more a few times to catch Art Bell and his syndicated late-night imitators, the original podcasters, you might say. Most all I ever got from it were sleepless nights because I was neither as cynical or worldly as I imagined. And then Stephen E. Meyer. The notion of seductive heart-of-gold vampires and soulful werewolves who only need an empathetic tummy-adjacent rub was flamin' Doritos for emotionally miswired adolescent girls and the hormone-addled teen wolves and bloodsuckers sidling up for a peek up the skirt. I actually found Mom one day sneaking one of those Twilight cinder blocks over socks and towels, suspiciously leaning into the basement washer. That may well have been my cannabis origin story. The day WMIL and I parted company, our morning zoo boys interviewed some hot university multimedia prof who held that, like opinions and assholes, every moron today has a podcast. Though she told me to fuck off as I stopped to chat on my way out of the building to torture my intern escort, the prof's other words inspired me to take up my own mic, even with the station call letters scratched into it. I had two major obstacles to podcasting fame. Well, two with several bullets. Every asshole with an opinion and an Amazon account indeed had a true crime cast, and many of them didn't have a half-dozen public intoxication pot busts on their sheet while trying to pull intel from the keepers of the sheets. And the local cops turned out to be better at solving midnight murders and geocaching body dumps than I'd assumed. Still, I lucked into a couple of low-life, low-radar prospects with the necessary quotient of lurid stupidity. Stuff that could be dressed up with a little NPR polish and a moody/broody royalty-free score. So help you actually care about folks whose absence might not have registered for a couple weeks, or whose departure might have been a low-grade net positive. I had a cousin in the Millington PD crime lab who cared about such folks even without the synthesized violins, and she tossed me a couple lightly gnawed, long-discarded bones. 5 episodes into Dollar Store Death, I hit connective tissue. 3 months before, Yelene Krautzer, a clerk at the dollar station on Main, had closed up for the night and trudged the brightly lit 3 blocks north to Bar Road and the moonlit 4 blocks west to the trailer park behind the community college. When Yelene failed to show up for another day of gassing Mylar balloons for backyard birthdays and early releases and calculating infinite multiples of $1.25, you expect them to change the signage every time the supply chain breaks? Then failed to show 3 more shifts. The manager called the MPD for a welfare check, and the MPD determined Yelene had indeed made it home. Keys on the coffee, Mountain Dew table, screen unlatched with the storm door ajar to loudly let Judge Judy and Kelly Clarkson out, and a single streak of crusted blood on a couch pillow. Blood matched Yelene, but according to Cousin Chris, also contain a second salivary DNA contribution that couldn't yet be traced. I'd seen Krautzer's Facebook wall and found it hard to buy anybody was slobbering over her, and given Yelene's known circle, that she was swapping blood for spit with anyone who didn't have ink or DNA on file with the MPD, the county, or the Pontiac or Joliet men's clubs. There was one more anomaly, as Chris put it. Canine hair on Krautzer's contaminated couch, breed unknown, or more likely a Heinz 57, but nowhere else on the slightly funky premises. The neighbors hadn't noticed any suitors around that or any other night, much less with a voyeuristic black lab mix in tow. But my sense was the ancient and self-medicated of Paradise Park were running on observational fumes. The Dollar Station crew testified Yelene enjoyed a lively sex life, if not precisely in those terms. 2 guys in particular haunted the station, hanging at Krautzer's register for near shifts at a time, creeping the clientele in irritable silence and binging energy drinks and paydays to keep the manager at bay. Jason Truitt looked something like what might happen to a lesser Jonas brother if Proactive ever went belly up and he made his rent under cars at the Lightning Lube a block up. Chad Salem had landed a Suh Wheat gig moving bongs and vape juice at the smoke shop between one of Millington's bustling new dispensaries and the Duncan, which had seen a spike in wholesales and parking lot collisions with the neighborhood cannabis trade. There theoretically might have been one brain and something hinting at a personality between them. Chad showed greater finesse telling me to go fuck myself, but they were working off roughly the same script. And like a lot of Gen Plussers today, romantic rivalry seemingly had not damaged their broship. There was little leverage to get either one on air, and I needed one or the other if I were going to play anybody besides the Dollar Station's horny off-brand soda vendor as prime suspect. Then, in a flash of inspiration, I visited the Lightning Lube and vape in big red neon, marketing geniuses they were not, for one last pitch. I left with a pair of fuck yous, a half can of Rockstar Pure Zero, and a grease-slick, empty chug of Mountain Dew Ultra Midnight. Cousin Chris accepted my gift with a sigh, and as she added me to the bottom of her to-do list, I took one more peek at the presumed crime scene photos. I'd missed the big black brick next to the trailer keys on the coffee table. As I'd intended, Chad put 2 and 2 in his missing piss drink together, and, I assume, helped Jason with the math as well. I wasn't surprised when I got the call a few days later, but the voice on the other end floored me. I agreed to meet her anyway, thinking maybe I could save the cast even without a body, or more accurately, the absence of one. What could go wrong at midnight at the soccer fields at the edge of town, right? She was waiting in the shelter by the bike trail. No other cars in the lot filled every summer Saturday with type A millennial moms and dads, but her profile was crisp in the single overhead the city'd installed to protect nocturnal joggers from their impulsive cardio. I got a little wary when I realized her rodent features were outlined in blue rather than municipal fluorescent orange, but I continued across the trampled, damp grass. They sacked me halfway across the first field, one from each side. I didn't need Chris to tell me who'd left dog hair on Yelene's house, and as Fourth Jonas ripped at me, I felt a sharp stab in the neck and momentarily caught Chad's bloody grin as he dove back in for a second gulp. I came to face and yelped like a little girl. The little girl the other little girls are too embarrassed even to beat up at recess. Yelene clearly needed some rare beef and leafy greens. Her narrow face was pallid, juiceless, her eyes dead. Unlike Kristen Stewart, however, the washed-out eyes were somehow also penetrating and expressive, and Yelene was smiling broadly, if in that Anthony Hopkins way right before he dishes you up with beans and cheap wine. And whatever Benicio del Toro, Robert Pattinson STD she'd caught from the fellas had had a miraculous effect on her new, neutral palette complexion, and there was an energy that had to be more than just mainlining Rockstar or Do. "Someday you'll want to thank me," she whispered in a frosty puff as my nods pulled up somewhere around my kidneys. "I appreciate your kind words, but a simple fuck off is thanks enough." Yelene rose and then shimmered, is the only word I can put to it, and I spotted the guys waiting at the edge of the asphalt. Then she popped back into focus and the former dollar store. Besides, everybody's got a podcast these days, like assholes and, It's okay. She had a few thousand years to work on her metaphors. The musketeers jumped when I entered, probably because I'd never learned to knock first and really didn't need to stand on ceremony anymore. I could feel, if not see, the fat and sassy moon beyond the hull in a way I never had, and I was still itching under the hoodie and jeans. "Fuckers letting us go?" the ingloriously naked Serena demanded. "Everybody went home for the night." I smiled. "Coming in for a landing in a few. Said we could let ourselves out." "You think to bring our shit brain?" Randy sneered. The poet of the group, and the guy who'd been the prospective star of my next crime cast until fate had intervened likely on Serena and Cody's behalf. Cody poked at a spot to the left of his bristly lips, then did the calculations and shifted to the right. "You got a little green shit on your..." "Oh." "Yeah," I sighed. "Oh." My favorite John Mulaney routine is the one about the girlfriend who, having seen Ray, declares that she didn't care for the whole dead brother thing. Neither did Ray Charles, Mulaney notes. Science doesn't care how you feel, nor the universe, nor whatever shit's stowed in the drywall in the back of the closet. Still don't care for the paranormal, or the extra normal. We somehow believe aliens are telepathic, cosmically attuned, all-powerful, all-knowing. But once I realized their highfalutin tech didn't come with a polygraph, I knew they put their metaphorical pants on one figurative leg at a time. Just flesh and slime like the rest of us, only better in science and vehicle design and highly susceptible to our special brand of terrestrial batshit. Everybody loves a good scary story with a hook-handed twist. And mine was a great one. After I showed my new BFF my locked room cheat and dealt with the rest of Team Tendril, I requested a ride home and left him or it or them. I'm an ally when I can. with that sage principle of the redneck code: tell your friends. While he, she, they, it fiddled with the GPS, I bid my bar buds a fond and final adieu, mainly to cleanse the palate. The Honda and the gear and the corn nuts were just where I'd left them. The field behind already had been stripped to stubble and earworms looking for a place to winter. A couple Fords were angled into the front of the double tap, which at the dawn's early light was dispensing biscuits and gravy and therapeutic dog hair to the guys who'd struck out on the Bright to suck up the rest of the corn and beans or shoot the shit out of stuff as they wet dreamed of being that first good guy with a gun who doesn't instinctively plug the black cashier. I was surprisingly still hangry, despite my impromptu feast, so I pulled it out of the turnaround and crunched into the gravel across East Millington. I noted for the first time the tap folks had dressed things up for the holiday with one of those 20-foot skeletons decked out in no doubt handmade biker gear. A vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost walk into a bar. "Dude," the bartender called after I took a two-top as far from the Morning Fox crew moderating a literal farmer roundtable underneath. "You look like death warmed over. Rough night, huh?" Probably as good a punchline as I was ever going to come up with. Stalled. I'm not gonna take a dump in a public restroom. I'm not gonna take a dump in a public restroom. I'm not gonna... Damn it. I'm not gonna make it home. And it's right there. That grim, concrete bunker masquerading as a sanctuary of sanitation. Sickly 40-watt bulbs over twin entrances generating just enough illumination for the beast to be visible in the night. Barely there, beacons of hope guiding desperate travelers to safety. Or to ruin if they function for a siren. Which to me, they always have done. Late night, deserted park, squat building lurking like a gargoyle. Hard pass. I haven't avoided that place for 35 years, only to let it pounce now. I'll keep walking. It's only 15 minutes. I can hold it. I can make it. I can... Fuck. I can't believe this shit. Literally. I don't do public toilets. At school. At work. In restaurants. Anywhere. My schedule has been refined over the years to ensure it's never a requirement. My plans are meticulous. My itinerary for every occasion is drafted around preparatory expulsions and drainage. The first 3 items on my agenda before any excursion are always be clean, be presentable, be empty, quickly followed by have phone charged, cash in wallet, and an escape plan, though these are secondary considerations. I can get away with screwing up on those. Bladder, too, can be humored if it refuses to comply, though with difficulty and potential for embarrassment. Empty bottles, vacant alleys. It can be done. Bowels can't. Not in any way, shape, or form. Don't even go there. And yeah, there have been close calls. Various delays have led to some near-catastrophic misses when my schedule got shredded by forces beyond my control. Like tonight. When I broke a golden rule by chatting longer to a Tinder match than I should have, missing the 10 o'clock bus. It was dumb, but things seemed to be going well, and I liked her. Could have predicted the "had a lovely evening but didn't feel a connection" text I received 10 minutes after saying goodnight and boarding the later bus. But I let my guard down because she played the part of interested well. My bad. I was kidding myself anyway. Not like it was going to last, even if we did decide to continue. It never does. I was already on dangerous ground at that point, but it would have been okay if not for the bus taking a meandering route through every unpronounceable village in the county and getting held up by roadworks. At midnight. Okay, maybe it makes sense to re-tarmac roads when there's less traffic, but still, 30 minutes onto a 60-minute trip, and by the time I disembarked, my gut was groaning. haven't been this close to the edge in decades. The pressure, the persistence, the pain. Stumbling along like a drunken gazelle, clenching my butt cheeks, trying to think happy thoughts. But I can't. Something's up in there. I can't hold it. Not for 15 minutes. Not for 15 seconds. It's coming out, and I have to go in. To the belly of the beast. To a urine-soaked germaphobe's nightmare. To that den of depravity, again after 35 years. FML. I bite the bullet and veer off the path, half running, half tiptoeing across a narrow strip of grass to the concrete slabbed perimeter around the monolith. It seems to inhale sharply, holding its breath as I approach, like a slumbering, concrete apparition, solidifying its presence in readiness for a reunion. I almost stutter to a halt as I reach the entrance with the faded male symbol on a scratched Perspex panel alongside. I haven't seen that up close since '89, and just being here now makes my stomach clench tighter than my ass. I want to turn, walk away, give up, and just shit my pants. But I can't let this haunt me forever. There has to be a time to face the past. That moment, apparently, is now, because my feet keep moving, and next thing I know, I'm inside, feeling like I'm 13 again. The smell hits me first, a mix of stale urine, bleach, and something rotten that almost resurrects the sushi I devoured 2 hours before. Until the familiar surroundings my eyes drift over, cause it to cower back down inside. I focus on the stalls at the back of this ceramic-tiled crypt. I keep my eyes forward, avoiding the cracked mirror over the grime-coated sink, the crude graffiti on the walls, the trio of yellowed urinals that leer as I pass, like dirty old men with pissed pants. Beneath my feet, crumpled tissue and puddles of stagnant liquid squish and splatter. Above me, fluorescent light tubes flicker and fizz. What am I doing here? I almost spin on my heels and head straight back out of this reeking vault, but my gut screams and the battering ram in my bowels launches a fresh attack, splintering the castle doors and poking through. I rush into a stall, not the one against the exterior wall, or the one in the center. The one to the right, I trust is safe. Just get it over with, I think, banging the metal door shut and sliding the lock. I undo my belt with one hand while curling the other inside the toilet dispenser to feel for a telltale sheet. Safe. But even if it was empty, there was no stopping this now. Button open, zip down, pants dropped. I turn and lower myself towards a broken seat, hoping to hover and not make full contact. But I have to abandon my revulsion and ideals of cleanliness as the castle gates buckle and the hounds of hell howl and thunder through. The missed bus, the delays on the road, the sushi that clearly wasn't good. A perfect shitstorm that created a perfect shitstorm, one that leaves me quivering and sweaty. 60 seconds later, I'm still here, trying to ignore my reality. The stink, the feel of the seat beneath my fully deposited ass, the creaks and buzzes and eerie, flickering emptiness of this alien landscape, one I never thought I'd visit again. But I did. I came back, and it didn't kill me or send me screaming into the deepest pits of despair. I sigh, feel myself relax, allow my eyes to slip open. No, it didn't kill me. But this wasn't the cubicle, where the nightmare occurred. That was 2 away, below the window, the one with the hole in the wall separating it from the middle stall. The hole plugged tight with tissue paper, like the one I see next to me now, as I turn to pull the flush handle. Was that there when I came in? How did I not notice? I took the time to check the dispenser. How could I have missed what was opposite? Was I that blinded by the urge to evacuate that I overlooked what's haunted me for decades? The hole in the cubicle wall with the scrunched up tissue securing it, keeping its purpose a secret until an unwitting victim comes along, innocently locking themselves into a vertical coffin, lowering a protective barrier of clothing, exposing themselves to the evil forces lurking on the other side of a flimsy plywood panel. A patient predator that chooses its prey wisely. The young, the vulnerable, the meek, sitting there and festering in the middle stall of three, biding his time until an opportune moment arises and the trap can be sprung, until the plug can be removed, clearing a roughly carved 3-inch diameter passage between the domains of decency, like it was 35 years ago, and is again now. I can't move. I can only sit, trousers around ankles, ass glued to the seat, beads of sweat on my brow as I see the ball of tissue vanish. Hear shuffling, furtive sounds from the neighboring cubicle as the sound of the flushing water fades. Observe a flicker of movement in the darkness beyond the hole. And then, with a hiss, something shiny and serpentine slides through. A snake with glistening scales slithers an inch into my stall, then another. Its body flexes and sways. It tastes the air in my direction with a forked tongue. My breath catches as it stretches closer. Its tongue gleams. Its fangs drip venom. Its empty eyes stare into my soul. How is this happening? How can there be a snake? I want to shout, stand, run, but I'm frozen to the spot. I'm afraid a noise will make it angry. I'm afraid a movement will make it strike. I'm just me, here, alone, with no one to help me. I have to be still. I have to be silent. If I just keep quiet, it might not hurt me. If I let it do what it wants, it might leave me alone. Just let it do what it wants. Number. Its eyes entrance me, drawing me deeper. Its undulating body hypnotizes. It knows me in a way I thought I'd forgotten, and it thinks it can use that against me. Fear-infused silence presses down on me, filling the air with the same quiet dread I remember. But I'm not going to sit here and take it. Not this time. I'm not a kid, cowering against a dirty cubicle wall. I'm a grown man, and I don't have to let that thing touch me. I'm not going to let it attack. I twist, grab the cistern lid, faster than I should, but I don't care. Bite me if you want, I think, lifting the heavy porcelain. Bite me, and this time, I'll bite back. I don't have to. The snake is frozen, unmoving, beady eyes analyzing my every move as I break its spell. Fuck off, I shout, and slam the cistern lid against the wall, forcing the stalking serpent to retreat. This can't really be happening, I know that, deep down. This is some kind of trauma response, brought on by my return to this lair after so many years. This place where evil may still lurk. This place that should not be standing. The snake is gone, but the hole remains, and I don't want to see what comes next. I lower the cistern lid, drop it to the floor where it clatters, stand to yank up my trousers. There's paper in the dispenser, but I forego it. I just want out, no time to waste. So I reach for the door as I tug up my zipper. 15 minutes to home, 10 if I run. Then I can strip and shower and wash away the filth and putrid memories. My fingertips graze the metal latch. Open the door. A whisper, thin as smoke, stops me dead. I freeze, chest tightening, mind racing. The fluorescent light tubes flicker faster, their buzz an electric hum, like a warning. Did I hear that? Did I imagine it? Was it just another echo from the past? Hurry, let me in. That voice again, insistent, forceful, like a hand around my throat exerting pressure. A voice of authority, the kind that requires you to obey. I shrink back, swallow a lump, both hands fumbling with my belt, drawing the strap so tight it digs into my skin. It sounds the same. It sounds like him, but it can't be. Can it? 35 years later, is he still here, doing the same thing to innocent children? Open the door. It's a command now, dominating, urgent. The door rattles in its frame and I squeeze my eyes shut. Impossible. He'd be 60, more. He can't still be here. I haven't seen him around town, not since Deborah left, and I moved back home to face my demons. And how is that working out? My eyes snap open. Anger, no. Annoyance, replacing the fear in my chest. I take a deep breath and speak out. Who's there? The sound of my adult voice once again shatters the illusion. The lights aren't panicking. The door isn't shaking. The ghost repeating old words has fallen silent. Fuck this. I step forward, take hold of the latch, ready to face what awaits. If there is someone there, if it is him or someone like him, this time I will take a stand. I'm not a victim. I don't have to comply. I don't have to bite my tongue or keep a secret. I'm not afraid to confront a monster, not anymore, because the monster was always just a bully and a creep. A well-groomed reptile in a top-tier suit and fancy shoes, wearing the face of a paragon of virtue. A fake smiling avatar whose insides were rotten to the core. A symbiote who managed to hide his... Before I slide the latch and open the door, something shifts below and I look down. Twisting into the stall, in the space between door and floor, is a mass of writhing tentacles, weaving and winding through the piss and grot coating the tiles. I stagger back, bump against the toilet bowl, watch the gray appendages approach, twisting around each other like a mass of limbs, reaching out to coil around my ankles. I lift one foot, then the other, hurriedly climb onto the toilet, clutching the top of the stall as the tentacles roll closer. They spread across the floor, curl around the base of the toilet, start to undulate upwards, seeking me out. This can't be happening. I know it's not. It's not. Get away! I shout, my voice bouncing off the tiles. You're not real! But as the words echo, a voice outside the stall whispers back. Not the same as before, but just as familiar. It's real, it says, a warm voice, comforting and gentle. I feel it before I recognize it, like a ghost caressing my cheek. Melissa? It was always real, but you tried to bury it, and it made you close yourself off to the world. I can't breathe. My eyes dart to the stall door, desperate to see if she's on the other side. The door starts to rattle again. The owner of the tentacles, still attempting to get in. I look down to see them curl over the rim of the toilet and brush against my feet. Another voice pipes up from beyond the door, stronger, resentful. You gave him all this power, Brooke accuses, forward as ever. You wouldn't name him, wouldn't tell, not even your mother, who was waiting outside when it happened. You took on that shame and let it destroy you. No, I whisper. Stop. This isn't fair. I just wanted to go to the bathroom. I didn't expect anything else. Tears fill my eyes as the tentacles reach my ankles and slip inside my trouser legs. A third voice, Caroline's my love, enters the void. You wouldn't talk to anyone. You kept it in, let it eat you alive and push me away. Her voice, like the others, stabs my heart and I tremble, blink, try to push it back in time where it belongs. Why am I hearing all this? None of it was my fault. I'm not the reason things never worked out. He is, that man, that perfect, upright citizen the town adored, the educator, the counselor, the patron of the arts and local charities, the polished liar hiding behind crumpled tissue and scrawled numbers on bathroom stall walls. He did this. And what are you going to do about it? That same low voice returns, snapping me back to attention. You think you can keep me out? Locked door or not, I'm coming in. I jolt as something slams against the door and a length of garden hose slaps over the top, thick and black, swaying as if it's alive. From its winking nozzle, a single drop of viscous liquid falls. I flinch, know what's coming. I reach out to grab it and aim it away, but the tip of the hose erupts quickly, spewing thick, tar-like goo over my face. I squeeze my eyes shut, grip the hose with both hands, howl as the ooze fills my mouth. Good boy. The voice chuckles, and I see red. Number I'm fucking not. I squeeze, throttle, pull on the now fleshy hose, feeling it wriggle and writhe warmly in my grasp. Let go! The man outside the stall shouts, trying to reel it back in. That hurts! Stop! Let go! I'm not your good boy. I hiss through clenched, grinding teeth. But okay, I will. I'll let go. I gave the thick hose one last yank, and the man howls in pain as it snaps, tumbles into the stall, drops loose and limply to the floor. The invading gray tentacles slip from my legs and shrink back, shriveling up as they dissolve, taking the hose and its dirty ooze with them, drawing the nightmare away. I blink, and everything is gone. My face is dry. The hole in the wall is no longer. The only sounds to be heard are the hum of the light tubes and the desperate, panicked pounding of my heart. I dismount from the toilet, reach for the latch, release it, and push open the door. The restroom is empty. I stumble out into the night, the fresh air welcome as I catch my breath. My phone feels cold in my hand as I remove it from an inside jacket pocket. It's late, but I know she'll be awake. Even if she's not, it doesn't matter. I hold the phone to my ear as I walk, wait until I hear her surprised voice. Mom, I say, voice breaking. There's something I have to tell you. The words tumble out, and with them, years of silence as tears flow freely down my face. The request. Hear me, O Master, as we submit to your will for our meager and groveling desires. We beg and ask you to feel our souls as they bend and call to you, O Master, for your mercy and favor upon us now. We beg you to hear the thoughts of us all. Kevin, Robert, Dave with the beard, Dave without the beard, Steve and Stephen, Roger, and, yes, my little brother, Brian. We have brought ourselves to this place on this very cold and difficult day to ask you for your assistance, O Master. And please respond pretty quickly, because my brother is driving me crazy and the others don't have the nerve to actually ask for help. We seek your assistance to meet girls. Yes, my master, we submit to you and hope to seek your favor to have the females of our neighborhood submit to our will. Don't tell anyone that the first one to have any success with girls has been my little brother, because that would work against us and our desires. Besides, it was only one time when he got a kiss from someone in his class on a dare. She really did not like him, but he keeps talking about it. Don't tell anyone. Yes, I have been asked by Kevin and Dave with the beard to say that they do have girlfriends, but they are unhappy females who will not go to first base with them until they are actually serious about what the relationship is all about. No information has been shared to explain what that may actually mean. I suggested a ring, but Dave without a beard and Steve and Stephen think that this might be going too far for... Oh, Master, I have been told not to use their names. Brian wants me to put it into my supplication, and that this is not relevant if we do have your favor in these matters. From our deep study of the material, we know that you do show your touch upon those who are willing and aware to sacrifice what we love to gain your respect. I still think it would make more sense to use our full names, but some people are too frightened of your power to be that willing. So, we will instead make our offerings to you. We have brought you the following as our sacrifice to you: my watch, given to me as a gift for my 16th birthday, and linked with the promise that this was one that my grandfather wore for many years and wanted me to have. I never wear it, but it is a potent sacrifice. Dave with the beard has offered you all of his comic books. He has been collecting them with Dave without a beard since he was merely a child. They are both willing to give it up now, and it has nothing to do with the information they have provided this evening about their move to a new place and their lack of space. They are also not related, although it seems sometimes that they could be brothers, despite the difference between hair color and attitudes toward life. I will continue. Kevin has a very nice guitar that he no longer plays, a Rickenbacker with 12 strings. I have offered to buy it from him at a reasonable rate. A discount should be considered, but he has chosen to carry it all this way and provide for you, O Master. Please accept his misguided offer. Seriously, I can play, and if he would just give me a chance, I could prove it. Steve and Stephen have. I must admit that they are family, not brothers, O Master, but cousins far removed from different parts of the family and living in the same neighborhood. Yes, it has caused some confusion among us, but also some amusement. Their offering, O Master, is to have a change of name. They have not yet decided which of them should make the sacrifice and have a new appellation, but they are making the inquiries needed to find out how it shall be done. I do not think this is the greatest sacrifice possible, but their minds are made up, I think. Robert has remained silent, O Master, and we are beginning to wonder if he is really into this. His appearance betrays an interest in sports more than obedience to you and your powerful essence. We have asked what he would like to contribute to achieve our wishes, all of our wishes, and he has made a sneer and tossed in a baseball into the ring. It is cold, so we know that this was a special ball that came at the end of the season, but I still feel that this is a grave insult. His response of "take it or leave it" is no reflection upon your majestic power, but please accept that this is coming solely from his arrogant soul and should be treated accordingly. Roger has brought his savings bonds. We told him that his sacrifice should not be so obvious, but he is adamant that they will mature soon, and that even those in your particular plane, O Master, should appreciate the money. So his offering is made, although I think that he may have other investments that are much more liquid that he is not willing to share with us. He just needs to trust us once. Finally, my little brother wants to sacrifice me. I feel that this would be quite pointless and silly. I also feel that I should inform our mother of this nonsense, but he has already threatened to expose our group to our parents, and I fear that I must allow him to do this. I would be honored to sacrifice myself, but I would like to be clear that this is done simply out of spite by him. The choice is yours. And seriously, O Master, don't listen to my little brother. He won't really appreciate all that can be offered to a lost soul. He's spoiled enough as it is. Here endeth our request, milk-fed. The town of Gord's Hollow was gaunt and undernourished in nearly every aspect. Its rickety streets laid out like a soothsayer's tangle of oracle bones, and its bedraggled buildings stood lean and haggard, much like the people that lived in them. The whole of it was hunched at the edge of a sea cliff, and mist rising from the crashing waves below hung everything above with a constant pallor. But there, right on the cusp of world's end, where the roar of the sea filled your ears, grew the only thing in Gord's Hollow that could be called hale and hardy, the gourd garden itself. It was this garden that made Gord's Hollow famous in our county. For generations, the emaciated people of the town had inexplicably produced gargantuan gourds that put all others to shame at the harvest festival. Their crooked-necked squash were taller than a man, their zucchinis large as coffins, but it was their pumpkins that drew so much envy. Huge and round and plump, it took 2 teams of oxen just to haul them. At the festival, the pumpkins loomed large over all the proceedings, so large it seemed they could swallow all other entries and have room left over to consume the judge as well. But their size itself was not the most striking element to their appearance, for the pumpkins were also of exceptional color. Their shells were a deep, vibrant orange, so deep and so vibrant as to almost be red. And though no one who was not a citizen of Gord's Hollow had ever seen the pumpkins cracked open, it was rumored the flesh inside was the scarlet color of new blood. It was an October day when I made my visit to Gord's Hollow. They had kept the secret of their pumpkins close for too long, and I was determined to discover their methods for growing them, by honest means or otherwise. Outsiders were uncommon in Gord's Hollow. My presence drew a searching eye from everyone in the streets. Nonetheless, I conducted myself straight to the garden's fence, a spindly wrought iron affair, and gazed through the bars at the great mist-shrouded fruits inside. "They're a sight to see, eh, stranger?" A voice called over the drone of breaking waves. The speaker was slim, as were all the townsfolk, but he wore a smile as he extended a bony hand. "Indeed," I replied, taking his hand, which I noticed felt almost as if it carried no flesh. "Would it be possible to get a closer look? I am a botanist, and I have never seen such magnificent plants." "Apologies, sir, but I don't carry the key." He nodded towards the chain, wrapped about the gate and secured with a heavy lock. "Could you direct me to the person who does?" Again, my apologies, but the gourds are off limits to visitors. The man smiled consolingly, and I noticed his gums were nearly the same pale color as his teeth. "Could you perhaps answer questions about them then? I am very curious to know how you grow them to such prodigious size." "Folks that come here are always wondering about that." He lifted his narrow shoulders. "But truth is, there's no mystery to it. They're just milk-fed and tended to with lots of care." I knew about milk-fed pumpkins. It was a simple process. A small slit was made in the pumpkin's vine and submerged in a dish of milk. Capillary action sucked up the nutrients and accelerated growth. Many gardeners in the county employed the technique, but none achieved sizes like those I saw before me. I am astonished to hear that. I have myself grown milk-fed pumpkins, but not to such a result. Aye, most folks aren't dedicated to it the way we are here. My interlocutor rubbed his arm as he spoke. We tend to our pumpkins day and night like other folks aren't inclined to do. It's just good gardening, and the milk that makes them grow. But what about fertilizers and seed selection? Do you plant them under the full moon? Of course we do, the man laughed. But so does everyone else. My name's Jack, by the by. If you have designs on staying the night, my inn is just there. He pointed a skeletal finger towards a corner building with a signboard bearing his name. You'd be most welcome for supper and to stay the night. I thanked him and accepted his offer. At dinner, two things surprised me. First, there was not a single dish served made from the bounty just outside the door. No butternut bisque, no fried eggplant, not even a slice of pumpkin pie. The second was the tremendous appetite of the locals. From people so lean and weedy, I would have expected reticence at table, but they ate with a gusto I could not contend against. Platters of steak and liver disappeared before I could stick a fork in, and where the thin men put it all, I could not say. I spent the evening introducing myself and leading conversations to the topic of pumpkins, but the line I received from every man was well rehearsed. Milk-fed and careful labor, the villagers were ironclad in their conspiracy. Jack was good enough to give me his finest room on the second floor, with a window overlooking the garden. I had a spyglass in my valise, and, unsuccessful at dinner, I hurried upstairs to see what might be seen before sundown. The mist made it difficult to gather much in detail, but I was able to confirm the diligent care provided by the townsfolk. Through my lens, I saw at least a dozen at work among the vines, some using shovels and hoes, as would be expected, and others employing water cans. But my eye was drawn to some who carried crates of dark glass bottles. I noted that the umbilical vines of each gourd had an identical bottle attached. As I watched, the gardeners exchanged the attached bottles for fresh ones from their crates. Ah, the milk, I thought to myself. There was a knock at the door, and I slid my glass away before opening it. Begging your pardon, it was Jack, still rubbing his left arm. Word is, there's a storm blowing in off the ocean tonight. I'll have to close your shutter. He stepped across to the window before I could invite him in, closed and locked the heavy wooden blinds, and then was back down the hall. As the night progressed, there was no storm, but through the cracks in the shutter, I could see lamplight moving about in the garden, enough to indicate a great deal of activity. I pressed my eye hard against the cracks, but could make out nothing. I threw on my coat and decided it was time for stealth. There was no light in the hallway. As I felt my way along, my feet encountered an unexpected obstacle, and I found myself tumbling down the stairs. I lay in the dark moment. Then a match struck, illuminating the proprietor's face, his sunken eye sockets cast in shadow as he descended the stair towards me. What do you mean tripping up your guests at the top of the stairs? I said, a little sharp in my unsettlement. My apologies. It is my habit to wait on the landing in case my guests ring. I must have drifted off. Are you hurt? Upon examining myself, I saw, though my pant leg was not torn and I felt no particular pain, a stain of fresh blood had formed on the fabric just below my knee. The town doctor is just a door over, Jack said, seeing the blood. No need for that, it can't be much. I insist. I'll not have my guests injured and going untreated, not when the hurt is on my account. He grasped my arm with surprising strength and pulled me to my feet. The doctor's residence was indeed the next door over, and as I was somewhat forcibly escorted, I caught only a glimpse of the gourd patch. The gardeners were busy, their lamps glowing large in the mists, but I could not make out what duties they performed, though it seemed that some of them lay prone on the ground. The doctor was a short man, though still gaunt and hollow-eyed the same as Jack. He did not seem to have been sleeping before we knocked, and the lamps in his examination room were already lit. As we entered, he stepped quickly to the storeroom door, which had been left slightly ajar. Before he closed it, I saw its shelves were lined with dark glass bottles. A tumble down the stairs, you say? The doctor waved me towards a chair. We'll have you stitched up presently. I sat and allowed him to lift my blood-stained pant leg. I was surprised to see my shin revealed unscathed. The doctor and I both stared a moment. Then I looked at Jack. His left arm, the one he was accustomed to rubbing as he spoke, was held close against his body. I had not noticed before in the dimness of the lamplight that his elbow was dripping wet. "It's not my blood," I exclaimed, feeling foolish to be in the doctor's chair while another man stood injured. "It's yours." Jack looked down at his elbow. The doctor moved swiftly to his cupboard, from which he extracted a tourniquet, and then to Jack's arm, where he applied it with expert efficiency. As I watched the speed at which the doctor worked, I was first impressed by his talent, but secondly, I became impressed by Jack's composure. He stood undisturbed by his treatment, as if it happened every day. Then I wondered that neither man had taken a moment to examine the source of the blood, but proceeded as if they already knew where the laceration lay. As I considered this, a horror needled into my brain. "Milk-fed," I whispered. Both men turned, their deep-set eyes glinting in the lamplight. "What was that?" Jack asked, his voice soft. "It's not milk. What you feed to the gourds, is it?" Neither man replied. "It's a wickedness," I said. They seized me, one on either side. "My apologies," Jack said. "It would have been better if you'd not come to our town." With strength, I could not resist. The two men pulled me outside. The doctor lit a lamp, and I was pushed towards the wrought iron garden gate. The glow of workers' lights haloed the gourds as I was drug along. The crooked necks stood taller than my head, and the marrow squash were laid above the ground like unburied coffins. At the foot, the great orange gourd, I was forced to my knees. "This is what it takes to grow them to such magnificence," Jack hissed as he bound me hand and foot. I waited to feel the bite of a scalpel in my inner arm. Instead, I was thrust face down, then it seemed, left alone. The lamplight faded, and I heard nothing but the droning of the waves below the sea cliffs. "Ha!" I laughed to myself, suddenly realizing what I had done. I'd come to Gord's Hollow to steal their pumpkin-growing secrets so I could beat them at the festival. But I had been seen through, and this was their prank to teach me a lesson. I raised my head to cry that I knew the game was up, but before my mouth could open, I heard a quiet sound, subtler than the distant waves. It was a sound of movement, like tiny curly vines worming over crumbly loam, a sound of searching, like a great umbilical stem yearning to be fed, and then with a prick of pain, a sound of gentle susurration, as of a baby's mouth sucking fresh warm milk, a thin tether of domesticity. My new wife adopted a rescue dog that came into my surgery for a simple vaccination. Typically, I try to keep a professional distance, but she fell in love with the shaggy mutt, and I was trying to be a good father to her son, little Nate. She called the dog Catch. What fun it was to make Catch fetch. Fetch, catch, fetch, catch. It was a big tease. Faking throw ball. Making that big dog lope about looking for the ball. And one day, my stepson joined in the fun. "Fetch, catch," he cried, swinging his arm in that clunky toddler way. Catch followed the arc of the make-believe ball through the air, but suddenly something snapped in that canine mind, and the thin tether of domesticity severed when the dog realized it had been fooled by a small boy. Every dog is a wolf. Nate, a naked ape, didn't have a chance. I am a vet, and normally I am unaffected by blood and suffering. But this was different. My new wife lost her mind. And in that moment, I operated on a primal level of panic. I wrapped the gore in a plastic shopping bag and rushed Nate to the hospital, where the ER doctors stitched up his torn face like a patchwork quilt. But they were unable to reattach Nate's mangled arm. If only I'd been a few minutes earlier. If only I'd packed the arm in ice. I am a veterinarian, for God's sake. I am also a goddamned fool. I got back to the house that night, and first thing, I dragged the dog out behind the shed. The dog was innocent, I suppose. It was my new wife that brought the brute into our lives. Pitiful yellow eyes, whimpering remorse, the dog crouched low, and I blew its sorry brains out with my hunting rifle. Grief swells until it shrouds the entire universe in gray. Then it shrivels down to its hard black core and buries itself in your heart, where every other beat is a pulse of anguish. With grief comes anger, blame, and remorse. My new wife was a mess. The wounds healed, but Nate's face was puckered by scar tissue into a permanent rictus of surprise, and the shocking angularity of his right shoulder was a constant reminder of horror and loss. I spent a fortune on plastic surgery, which moderated the facial disfigurement so that Nate could move around in public without attracting too much attention. And when Nate was old enough, his prosthetic limb, the training wheel arm, was upgraded to a sleek, robotic carbon fiber contraption that he controlled by twitching the muscles in the shoulder. He was a passable imitation of a teenager, but joy and hope seemed absent. Sports and clubs and friendship too. He spent hours alone in his bedroom. The one-armed boy, her damaged son. Nate's mother was immobilized by grief, which soon turned to irreversible and ever-deepening depression. She grew thin and weak, listless and atrophied. Her face became an ashen mask. She became a passenger, a burden, useless to me, and she avoided the boy. She couldn't bear the sight of his missing limb. She couldn't bear the daily reminder of her terrible error. Finally, with her maternal and spousal duties fully abandoned, she one day went to collect the mail from the mailbox at the end of the driveway and never returned. Months later, her skeletal remains were found by a road cleaning crew on a quiet stretch of I-95. In her pocket, they found a picture of little Nate, pre-accident, still precious and whole, with his right arm draped over the neck of the dog. Madeline Marks, a comely senior at the high school, invited Nate to the school prom. It was an improbable match, but I was desperate to see Nate achieve a modicum of happiness, independence at least. So I said a little prayer and hoped for the best. Perhaps she was one of those do-good angels who tried to make everyone feel included, or who are blind to disablement. But something felt wrong. The children at Nate's school were relentless bullies, tortured Nate with minor humiliations. My suspicions were substantiated later that night when Nate returned home early, alone, in tears. He was carrying his prosthetic arm like a piece of salvaged wood. It was covered in filth and looked badly damaged. His jacket sleeve was torn. Someone had ripped the prosthetic limb from its exoskeletal shoulder mount. I intercepted Nate, got a slice of the tawdry story out of him before he stormed up to his bedroom and slammed the door. Evil sometimes wears a pretty face. Nasty Maddie. Bad girl Maddie. I ask you, as a man, what would you have done? From grief to anger. From anger to vengeance and retribution. We are talking of a short journey. The next day, Maddie's mother phoned and screamed groundless accusations at me. Where was Maddie? What did Nate do to her precious daughter? Nate was a schemer, a druggie, a weirdo, a monster. I was worse. I created the monster. It was true. This was as much my fault as anybody's. As a father, I was a failure. Not that I ever wanted the role. The police arrived with a warrant. They confiscated Nate's computer, and they asked him a lot of questions, which caused the scars on his face and neck to flare up bright crimson with suppressed shame and rage. The police were persistent. This strange-looking boy with the disfigured face and the articulated claw hand was their prime suspect. But Nate knew nothing. Maddie left him and went off with an older boy. She was probably on the lam in Augusta or Portland. It was a lewd prank to impress a clique of friends. It was a high school hazing, a warped Stephen King dare. Onlookers, teen boys and girls, laughed at Nate as he tried to pull the prosthetic from out of the toilet bowl, where Maddie's boyfriend had jammed it into the trapway. Nobody helped. The police detective, a pit bull man, took notes. A prank would not account for Maddie's absence. Something more sinister had happened to her, he was certain. They'd check Portland, they'd check Augusta. But I could tell, right from the get-go, they were focusing their biased and ignorant investigation exclusively on Nate. The detective even started on me. What was I doing on prom night? Had I seen the girl, Maddie? Had I aided and abetted in a crime? Newspaper reporters were sniffing around, rifling through the trash. A TV station sent a van over and parked outside, looking for an interview with Nate or me. Someone threw a brick through through the front window. Someone fired a gun at the garage. Maddie's mother hissed at me like a cat outside the supermarket. Strangers spat at me in the street. My clients canceled appointments, and my staff at the surgery resigned. Maddie's body parts were mostly found strewn about the woods near our house, along the riverbank, and wedged between rocks on the trail behind the nearby transfer station. Maddie's head was impaled on a railing fence near the town pond. With her remains discovered so close to our house, it only intensified the scrutiny. I kept Nate inside, fearing a lynching. Not that he had any interest in going out. Where would he go? What would he do? An itinerant was discovered living in a squalid camp in the woods on the south side of Bald Mountain. A creep, a hermit. His hovel was part hidden by a cave and a clump of gnarled hemlock, and the nearby forest floor was surrounded by scraps of animal fur and bones, grisly, rotting offal. He was a wild man in his 50s who'd been stealing from cabins and campsites, trapping animals in the woods. He'd been living in the woods for perhaps 2 years. A charred piece of Maddie was found in his campfire. Case closed, but not completely. I waited a little while until things had died down a bit, until Nate seemed capable of grasping my concept properly. He seemed slow to understand, then outright confrontational. Nate was repulsed by the idea. What kind of madness was this? His own stepfather? Did I not understand how truly fucking evil this idea was? What had possessed me? What kind of man would do that? It was wrong. It was sick. He wanted nothing to do with it. He would denounce me. I confiscated his phone. He tried to leave the house, and I was forced to fight him to the living room floor, where I subdued him with sprayed triple drip that I used at the surgery to anesthetize livestock. When he came to, he was unyielding. There was no arguing with him. He would not see reason. I explained to him that it was too late anyway. In for a penny, in for a pound. There was no going back now. But eventually, I gave up arguing. Better to seek forgiveness than permission. I dosed him up for surgery. Once Maddie's arm was properly unfrozen, it turned out to be a pretty good match in terms of skin tone and musculature, though perhaps a bit smaller than I would have liked. Her blood type was compatible with Nate's, and the nerve endings and blood vessels were clean and undamaged. It would be a microsurgery marathon, but I was confident that I could perform the operation without any help. Perhaps I was never meant to be a parent. Nate seems to have adjusted reasonably well, though I don't see much of him these days, because it's best to keep him locked in his bedroom. Such rage in one so young It can't be the arm, because to the casual observer, it looks quite passable, though a bit pale. And I know the operation was a brilliant success because he recently hurled a can of Coke at me from the far side of his room and nearly knocked me unconscious. So vicious and accurate was the throw. Perhaps the melancholy is hereditary, but perhaps it's that twisted, scarred, and scowling face. Who knows how that might affect a young person? He only has one expression, and I sense that it makes him unfit for an independent life. Nate has one friend, another loner type, a gaming buddy called Jeremy, who'd came around once to help Nate fix his computer. He and Nate had some kind of falling out. It occurs to me that Jeremy has a very passable smile,